Hello Forest fans and welcome back to Matchday with Max, another wet, cold, damp city ground as the Reds face Barnsley tonight, which funnily enough was the game that was called off a few weeks ago due to a waterlogged pitch. But now let's go and speak to two people who know Forest best and cover them every single game for BBC Radio Nottingham. I'm here with BBC Radio Nottingham's Colin Fray and Robin Chiperfield before the game against Barnsley. It's been another difficult season watching the Reds and the weather's been poor as well. What would you say has been the worst game in terms of weather and football and most miserable?
There's been a few, especially given the weather. I think the winters get longer and longer, don't they, every year? There was a game that was here, and I think it was Birmingham, where it was so cold that when we were doing our Facebook Live piece after the game, we were still in coats and hats downstairs, even though we were inside. That was freezing. And the other one that was bitterly cold was Sheffield United, when you just thought all the snow had gone, and then suddenly it started snowing again, and that was freezing. At Sheffield United, you're up really high on a gantry underneath the stand roof, and it was windy, and there were blizzards, and the snow was blowing in. That was cold. It wasn't much fun.
And Robin?
Yeah, Birmingham here was bitterly cold. It's one of those where you put 6 or 7 layers on, literally 6 or 7 layers on, because you're out there. The thing is, you're not out there for 2 hours. You're out there, Colin and I are out there for 6 hours, and then you do a Facebook Live afterwards, which actually this time was inside. It was that cold. But you're out there for 6 hours, so you've got to really layer up. Lots of layers of socks and underclothes and all sorts. But yeah, Birmingham at home was cold. Certainly from a Forest perspective, that was the coldest for me this season.
And like I said, it's been another difficult season watching the Reds. Highs and lows this season for you then?
Highs would be, the Arsenal game is fairly obvious here, obviously. The other high for me, bizarrely, I'd go back to August, second game of the season, away at Brentford.
Yes.
Magnificent game of football, 4-3, in the sunshine. Forest looked brilliant going forward, and you thought, happy days. Happy days are ahead. Not quite as happy as we thought that Saturday, but that was a brilliant day.
And highs and lows for you then?
Well, I'd go with Arsenal as well. I think most people would pick out the Arsenal game here from this season. And the other one really for me is probably, I mean, that was a good game that Rob mentions, the Brentford game. QPR. I didn't see the second QPR game, the one down in London, the 5-2, but I did see the 4-0 here. Which again was at that stage of the season, fairly early season. The sun was out, Forest were flying, and everything looked as if, the Mark Warburton plan, if you like, was clicking into place, which obviously hasn't proved to be the case completely. But that day was a good day. And
do you think another up and down season makes it easy to talk about on the radio, because there's so much to talk about?
I suppose so, in a way. I'd rather be talking about a few more goals than what we went through a few weeks ago. It'd be nice to have some sort of goal scoring record that isn't how long you haven't scored for to be banging on about. And it would be nice for Forest. Of course, all fans know that it's about time that Forest had a good old tilt at the right end of the table rather than mid-table as it's been for much of this season. We all thought it would be. Obviously, that's an improvement on what happened last season. And now you look for them to take the next step and have a good old go at getting into the playoffs.
And you've both watched, obviously, Forest all season. Which players would you say have stood out for you, really, Robin?
That's a good question. We were in the car, I think, Colin and I, a week ago, and I said to Colin, who's your player of the season? And he's not giving me an answer yet. So, and I think that kind of sums it up. Who's going to be player of the season? I have no idea, because
surely someone that's coming from the January transfer window, would you say? Or
well, yeah,
really,
but you've got to. Surely you'd have a player of the season across the whole season. In which case, there aren't that many to pick from, and you're probably looking at Ben Osborne, who's been in for the rest of the season. But yeah, I mean, someone like Figueiredo, but then he's only played a dozen games. So can you have him as your player of the season? So he might give you an answer. He's not giving me an answer.
No, I doubt it. I don't suppose I'll give you an answer either. I'll sit on here. I've been impressed with a few of the guys that have come in at the end of January. I think Figueiredo's been excellent. I think Watson and Colback have given Forest something they didn't have in the middle of midfield. Pantilimon in goal has played well. But I'm with Robin, really. I don't think you can choose a player of the season from somebody who's only played a dozen or 15 games or whatever it is from the beginning of February onwards. So then you're looking at the players who've impressed over the course of the whole season. And I think you are looking at somebody like a Ben Osborne, who's obviously had loads of positions again. He's got his detractors, but week in, week out, you know you're going to get 100% from him. And he's done it all season. And there aren't many of them that have done it all season this year.
And tonight's game, Barnsley, they've got a lot to play for. They're in a relegation scrap. What do you think is going to happen tonight then?
I think we're going to see Forest break their shackles a little bit. They've got back into the goal scoring habit over the last couple of games, having got the late goals against Ipswich and then scored one against Cardiff. I think they played all right against Cardiff, albeit against a good side, and therefore lost. I think if they play that well against Barnsley, they'll win it, and they'll win it quite comfortably.
Think the same then?
No, I think Barnsley need it more, but Forest have more quality, so I fancy a draw.
Yep. And the most important question this season is, who do you think's worn the worst hat?
There is some competition here.
Steve Sutton?
Are you going for Steve Sutton's
I am.
flat peak?
On
The
Facebook
Peaky
Live.
Blinders cap. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I'm not sure he's ever worn it on the Facebook Live, but when you see Chipper's sky blue bobble hat
Right.
at the side of the pitch when it's cold, and you worn that on Facebook, have you dared to wear that on Facebook Live? Yeah, you look at the comments he got on that Facebook Live, that's the hat of the year.
I think Steve Sutton, that's nowhere near the hat of the year. I think Steve Sutton's, not his Peaky Blinders hat, his black beanie hat thing. I think he looks an idiot in that.
And you've obviously had a really busy time covering the Winter Olympics. How do you think your young apprentice, David Jackson, got on with the commentary?
Well, I think he did okay. I mean, he's obviously stolen all the goals, because no sooner did I come back than there was a couple against Birmingham, and then they didn't score for about 100 games, and he got 5 at QPR. So I think there's something wrong with the distribution of goal scoring there.
And I'm sure I speak for all Forest fans, and I'd like to thank you both on behalf of all Forest fans for the great coverage from
Thank you.
across the season, and thanks for
Pleasure.
taking time to speak to me today.
Thanks, Max.
Thank you.
Cheers, Max. Thank you.